Hello and welcome to Talk from Superheroes. Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Ivimey.
And I'm Diana McCullum.
And you're listening to Talk from Superheroes, where every week we discuss a piece of heroic television or film. And this week on the podcast, we are talking about the much loved and anticipated The Last of Us television series.
The HBO Last of Us television series. We're doing the entire season today.
Yes, we're
doing
doing
the whole shebang.
The whole thing. We're talking about all of season 1 of The Last of Us. So we'll be getting into all of season 1 of The Last of Us. As we do anytime that we talk about a new TV show or a new movie, we are going to give you a spoiler-free review. So in case you're not caught up on the full season, maybe you haven't even started and you've been waiting to binge the whole thing, whatever your reason might be, we will give you a spoiler-free review. Then once you hear the theme song, that is going to be when we enter the spoiler-filled section. So after the theme song, there will be spoilers for the entirety of season 1 of The Last of Us.
There will be spoilers ahead, and for the game, I guess we'll have to get into that. But
and for the game,
double spoilers,
double spoilies,
double spoilies. We're gonna ruin it all later.
The show and the game. Although I will say, like, this has been a weird experience with The Last of Us specifically, just in terms of online spoiler culture, where I don't know if it is, and I think it might be a combination of a couple things, because I feel like the internet went wild spoiling stuff for this series. Like, it would be like an episode finishes airing, and within 3 minutes, every social media is like, here's a clip that's the best 3 minutes of tonight's episode. Like, just spoiling the hell out of it. And I don't know if it is the fact that we haven't had destination television in a while. It's been a while since there's been like live TV that everyone's talking about that can be spoiled, or if it's the fact that this is based on a pre-existing property. So for anyone who's played the game, it's kind of already been spoiled, or a combination of those factors. But I feel like there's been no restraint, respect, or regard to spoilers around The Last of Us. Have you felt this?
I felt it a little. Now, I have felt it on an episode-by-episode basis. Of the episode airs, people feel okay posting spoilers almost immediately, but no one is jumping ahead to post spoilers, I will say.
Oh, okay. I would
see
that.
I would never go on Twitter and someone would be like, I can't wait for next week when this person's going to die. Like, no one would ever say that, even though, like, it's clearly going where it's going, like, along with the game, and it is easy to just throw that out there. So I would say no one was ever throwing out, like, ahead spoilers. But as soon as it aired, it did seem to be fair game that you can just post all your GIFs, all your videos. No, not even, like, you know how you can, like, have, like, GIFs and you can have, like, tweets that are, like, no context, non-spoilery. Like, this is a joke that's only funny if you've seen it. Yeah. This is an observation you can only make if you've seen it. But yeah, it did seem to be just fair ground to be like, we all watched it live.
Yeah.
And some people don't watch it live. We're sorry.
And some people don't watch it live, and also, yeah, it's just, we all know the courtesy. It's like minimum 1 day, preferably 2, for whatever we're doing spoiler-wise. Like, there was a point where spoilers used to be like a 1 week refrain. We're at a 1 to 2 day, but you gotta at least give it 1 to 2 day.
TV, definitely 1 to 2 days. I think a week for a movie because you have to go to a physical theater.
Oh yeah, movies you get a week.
Yeah,
movies
but
you get
TV,
a week.
like, you can watch it at home within 2 days usually. I'm gonna give you 2 days.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I agree on the spoiler, weird spoiler culture around this one.
Yeah. You know what? Why isn't social media making improvements to this? This is what I'd do if I bought Twitter. I'd put out a poll and be like, what is the minimum amount of time? And then I'd be like, anyone who tweets a Last of Us spoiler is banned if they do it within the first 48 hours or whatever we decide after the show.
We've got a timeline. I really do. I remember when Infinity War, not so much Endgame, when Infinity War came out, the Russos and like Marvel even put out a thing like, don't put the spoilers out for 2 weeks. Like, they put a timeline out.
Yeah.
Which really, really helped. Like,
I think it super did.
It really did. Because like, people wanted to make those snap memes immediately.
Yeah. But you gotta hold on to your
memes.
Hold
on to your memes. Go into Photoshop. Get them ready.
Like,
we're gonna give you a week.
We can't stop you from Photoshopping, but take a moment.
We'll have a little timer.
Yeah, the Photoshop timer.
And spoil it.
Yeah. Everyone gets a free 7-day trial of Adobe Suites. Okay, so that's just a little bit about spoiler culture. But let's get into a spoiler-free review of the show. Let's ask the simple question. Diana, did you like it?
I didn't like it. I loved it. I gotcha. Your face. Your face, Andrew. No, I loved it. It's very early in 2023, but obviously will be one of the best shows of the year. It's absolutely incredible. The acting is incredible. The writing is phenomenal. The direction is everything you need. It is all there. There's not that many effects, but they are very, very good. The ones that are there, they use them sparingly, which is actually nice. Everything about this show is, it will break your heart, but you will also like kind of have faith in humanity again, even when you're like, humanity kind of sucks at the same time. It is not just like trauma porn. It really is kind of an uplifting, secretly optimistic story that really pulls at me. So many good side stories happening. There's nothing but praise for this show. Like, it is one of the most completely well done shows I can think of. Every single aspect is absolutely coalesced and working and perfectly functioning, and just is an incredible hour of television every single week. And I'm mostly just mad there's only 9 episodes. So that's the only thing I don't like about The Last of Us Season 1. So it's high praise. It's huge love. There's nothing not to like. Andrew, did you like The Last of Us?
I'm with you. I loved it. I loved it. I adored it. I think it's near flawless. It is truly incredible on a week-to-week episode where it's the writing is impeccable, the production is impeccable, the performances are breathtaking, great guest and character pieces as well. Like obviously, Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey are doing phenomenal jobs as the two primary leads of the show, but also everyone who manages to come through in a guest or a supporting role really gets a moment to shine. They are not just background characters, or they're not just support pieces. They really come in with fully fleshed out micro stories, micro arcs, these wonderful performances. So I couldn't agree more with everything that you've said.
Excellent. I love when that happens.
So I think that this is a brilliant piece of television and a brilliant piece of media for anyone to watch. And I also think that this show is kind of a masterclass in how to adapt a video game and another medium as well, because this does a really wonderful job. And granted, the video game already gets you to the 90-yard line. Like, it is already one of the more narrative, more cinematic, and I know that I won't get into that whole discussion, but there's a whole video game discussion about how narrative or filmic a video game should be. The video game is very performance, cutscene, story driven. It's not like we're talking about adapting Super Mario Brothers, but with
the second best adaptation of a video game property, obviously.
Clearly. So it's already very close, but this show does a really brilliant job of editorializing and deciding what to conjoin, what to branch off a little bit, where things kind of meander, how to coalesce, how to make little moments tighter. It really does a great job of being like, okay, the video game obviously has these stories, has these cutscenes, has these powerful moments. How do we fill in that 1 hour gameplay gap where you were shooting random people as you try to get down a street, and then just like you're just playing? How do we coalesce that story beat with the fact that you were also just walking around picking up rags when you played the video game for 30 minutes? And it really does a masterful job of tying it all together. So nothing but love and respect for the show. I really think that it's for everyone, and it's also for fans of the original property, which when adapting an existing IP is a razor thin, very difficult thing to do.
I agree. I feel like we've learned an interesting lesson in like the past year or so, because the showrunner is also the co-creator of the game. It's like a dual showrunner, I think, him and some other guy. And I feel like sometimes that can be too precious, but sometimes it can be like, we also know the story and we know what people liked about it and we can adapt it. And I feel like we learned this on Sandman as well, when Neil Gaiman was like, I have full creative control over the Sandman show, and it ruled.
Right. I know how to adapt this.
And you think you don't want to give these people the kind of the reins sometimes when you're adapting it into a medium that they're not actually working in all the time, but obviously it works.
I think it obviously works, and I think I agree with you that like you need to give some of the reins to the original creators, but I also think it goes to show that like it is filmmaking, television making, it is a collaborative art form.
Yes, that's a great point.
And it's not so much that it's like, oh, well, if you need Neil Gaiman in order to adapt it. It's like, no, you need Neil Gaiman involved. It is whenever you see these type of properties or an IP purchase where an executive is like, get the fuck out of here. We're doing what the census groups tell us to do. Whenever it is an individualistic, whether it's an executive or the person who's working on the adaptation or whoever who's just like, this is mine now. That's when it fails. Whereas this is like, we have Druckmann from the video game. We've got our own showrunners. We've got some executives from Sony. We've got Santa Monica Studios, or we've got Insomniac involved. And it's getting everybody on board. And because filmmaking is a collaborative art form, I'm tired of screaming it on this podcast. And I think that that's what makes things adapt properly and work well.
I completely agree. Yeah, I think that's a great lesson to take away from the things that have been great in media the last couple of years, is that there is collaboration and like kind of a heartfelt love of what made the original great.
Yeah.
And not just kind of like making it a new thing. It's like, no, you have to keep the core of what made it great and then adapt it to whatever the medium is.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Collaboration.
Well, in the spirit of collaboration, before we get into the spoiler-filled section of the podcast.
Oh, wait. Can it be spoiled? Yeah, it can be spoiled.
I mean, yeah, it can be spoiled.
If you haven't played the game, I haven't played the game.
Yeah, and you know what? Even if you play the game, I mean, I guess it can't really be spoiled if you've played the game. There are some slight deviations and some things that they've combined or changed a little bit. But if you've played the game, it can't really be spoiled. If you're going in fresh, it can be spoiled.
Absolutely.
It absolutely
Huge
can.
spoilies.
Yes. Yeah. Well, so it can be spoiled. We both loved it. Before we get into the spoiler-filled section of the podcast, we want to thank our wonderful sponsor of today's episode. We want to thank our friends over at Masterclass.
Over at Masterclass, where you're going to learn from the world's best minds on pretty much any topic you want to learn about and just become better at and take a class about. They have over 2,500 classes from a range of world-class instructors, and the thing you've always wanted to do is way closer than you think and way cooler to learn about.
Yeah, and like there's so much there that's just ready for you. So like we're talking about Last of Us today on the podcast. On the subject of video games, they have classes with Will Wright, creator of The Sims. I've taken those classes. Phenomenal, helpful, informative about game design and theory as well. And yeah, Will Wright definitely with The Sims and a lot of the games that he has created, a little bit more non-narrative driven, but a lot about that like theory, procedural creation, and dynamic elements that are in games. Interesting, intriguing, wonderful. Hey, it's Oscar season. Oscars just happened. They have a bunch of Oscar winners there doing classes. They have classes with Ron Howard, Natalie Portman, Hans Zimmer, Samuel L. Jackson, Aaron Sorkin, Jodie Foster. You can learn from Oscar winners.
Oscar winners, the world's greatest at everything, are teaching you how to do the thing they're great at. And it is absolutely incredible. It's special. I've taken Malcolm Gladwell's writing class on nonfiction, which is actually super interesting because nonfiction writing and just like storytelling in that way, I think isn't discussed very much. There's so much about fiction writing and developing a narrative with fictional characters, but I was like, I just want to learn how to like write my articles better and really get a flow of what's going. And it was a really interesting and helpful class in that way.
That's very intriguing.
Yeah, just a place you don't see very often.
Huh, I like that. And also the classes are something that you can sit down and you can spend a full day, a full afternoon working, going through, but you can also just have these little micro doses, have a small class, maybe in between things that are going on in your day. It makes it easy for you to participate in no matter what your schedule or what your hectic life may be. And then just a fantastic app, the ability to take notes within
Such a good
itself.
app.
It's just really... It makes everything, it removes all of the barriers that could be between you and learning. And then while you're there, maybe you go there to learn writing or game design or performance. But while you're there, maybe you pick up a different skill set. Maybe you see, oh, why not check out, gardening, cooking, whatever it might be. So it makes it easy and welcoming to also dip into new topics that you might not have even realized that you want to take a class on.
Yeah, you'll browse through and you'll just see things. Like I just saw Science of Sleep and I watched the whole class and I was like, I know so much more about sleep now and I sleep better.
Love it.
Learn it all.
So we highly recommend you check it out. Get unlimited access to every class. And as a Talk from Superheroes listener, you get 15% off an annual membership. So go to masterclass.com/TFS now. That is masterclass.com/TFS for 15% off Masterclass. And thank you, Masterclass, for your support.
Thank you, Masterclass.
And now let's get into the spoiler-filled section. Let's talk more about The Last of Us.
Dun, dun, dun.
All right, we have seen The Last of Us. We are now in the spoiler-filled section, which, if you played the game, not too many spoilers overall from a narrative arc standpoint. I'm really glad you liked it.
I'm also really glad I liked it. I love when I love a thing. I love having a new thing to love. Yay, good media. Because when things are bad, our job is very hard and tiring.
It can be.
It makes
unless it's the sweet spot of bad.
Sometimes
there is
a sweet spot.
There is a sweet spot.
But it is really nice to have a show that you're covering be really, really good. So I'm also glad I really liked it. But yeah, we're a fun little duo of a game player and a non-game player.
And now you had seen me play the game, so you knew a lot of the narrative beats for the most part.
I don't think I'd really seen you play 1 that much, but then 2 kind of shows you most of the narrative beats of 1. So I watched you play 2.
Sure.
So I knew how 1 ended, but I didn't know like Sam and Henry's storyline. I didn't know Bill and Frank, although Bill and Frank apparently were such a small part, from what I understand.
A different part, absolutely. Yeah.
So I didn't know I kind of knew how it started and ended, and I didn't know much about the middle.
Okay. And just a wonderfully performed show. I got to say, Pedro and Bella do a phenomenal job as Joel and Ellie. A truly phenomenal job.
My God. Like the actual just tearing down of each other's walls that happens, and the way that they have to reverse it sometimes, because Ellie is trying to break down Joel for 5 or 6 episodes to open up to her and accept her and make them friends, and then Ellie goes through a trauma and Joel has to try to break her traumas down and be the one who's more open and fun and starting conversation, and it's just this beautiful friendship that is just told entirely through their performance and also through the incredible writing. There are some banger lines that are right up there with WandaVision's "What is Grief?" There are some incredible, memorably well-written lines of this show. But yeah, the acting of Pedro and Bella are over the moon good. Although not a weak performance in the entire show though. Show me a weak performer in this show. I'll punch you in the face. I will tell you you're wrong.
It is truly impossible. I will say one performer that I do want to give a lot of credit to as well, and this is something that I found was very important in an understated and a character that not enough people give love and credit to, that was very important in the game and very important in the show. Nico Parker, who plays Sarah, his daughter.
Okay.
She does a phenomenal job in that first episode, and I feel like an underappreciated performance and character both in the game and the show, where that is load-bearing. If you don't buy into that relationship and that failure and tragedy to start, the setup of what Joel and Ellie are does not work if you don't buy into the similarities between Sarah and Ellie, who he sees when he looks at Ellie and who that develops into, and just this tragedy, this broken watch that he carries with him. If you don't buy into that, I think that is so load-bearing to set up the character of Ellie for success. That no matter how good a performance Bella gives or how well-written Ellie can be, if that Sarah aspect does not work, I feel like a lot of what follows doesn't work. And I think that it's a great performance, and I think that that introduction is a really good job.
I really liked the introduction. I thought she was very good. I'm curious what you mean about the failure of the relationship, because Joel seemed like a really good dad who was trying really hard.
Like the
fact that he doesn't save her. Okay, that is a failure.
Yes.
All right, you know what? Fail.
Yes. Yeah.
Fail on the
a
save.
tragic circumstance, but it's something he blames himself for.
Okay, I thought you meant within their relationship there was a failure, but
No.
I thought their relationship was really nice.
I agree. Their relationship was really nice. They have a very cute relationship.
It's so cute, and and Joel and Ellie have to get there. Because
Yes.
Joel won't break his walls down, but you're like, we know that he can get there.
And you have to see that he's almost afraid to get there.
Yes.
Like you have to see that it's like the relationship that you want to fall into with Ellie, the one that's so easy, frankly, to fall into, that
You have to fight against it.
Yeah.
It's like fighting a current.
it's a kid who's Ellie's naturally charming but abrasive, but too smart for her own good, and like there's so much that you if you slip up for a minute, you fall into the same relationship you have with Sarah, and you need to feel that fear that Joel has of the like I don't want that because that hurts so much once. Yeah.
Now, this is maybe, I don't want to say it's a negative, but it's a thing I don't understand the reasoning for, actually, of involving Sarah in episode 1, is all the stuff with her and Joel was so wonderful. Their relationship was great. I was confused why so much of episode 1 was from Sarah's point of view instead of Joel's. Because the entire flashback is Sarah. She goes to the watch shop. She goes to the neighbors. She goes to the neighbors again. She goes over there twice. We don't follow Joel to work. We don't follow Joel to find Tommy, and when they come back guns a-blazing, something's clearly happened when he left the house. So I honestly couldn't understand the reasoning of following Sarah through the POV of episode 1 instead of following Joel.
You know what? That's something I didn't quite question until you bring it up now, but I think you raise a great point there that may be one of the few small failings that the show makes in adapting from a video game to a TV format.
Oh, was Sarah the opening of the game?
You control Sarah in the opening segment of the game, which I think is a very wise decision in a video game, because one of the differences between the format of a game versus consumed television or film is that, like, if you take a movie like Taken, for example, a character who's like, I need to get my daughter back because I love my daughter. And you watch that movie and you're like, yeah, of course, this guy wants his daughter back, so you go get his daughter back. If that was a video game and you're just like, someone took my daughter and I want to get my daughter back, if you're controlling that character, you're like, I don't give a fuck about her. I've never met her. Why should I give a shit? I don't care. I'm not your me. I'm not you.
You're me, I'm not you. It's a great way to describe characters. Like, I have to build a relationship with your daughter. I have to want to save your daughter.
Exactly. So in a movie, you can tell someone, I want to save my daughter, and it works. In a video game, you need to feel, I want to save my daughter. Fallout 4 was a great example of that, of a video game where it was like, you need to find your child. And I was like, fuck no. I built a city, and I'm now hunting for the Gray Ghost, the star of the radio serials that I love so much. I could not care less about my child.
Okay.
But in a game, by controlling Sarah, being Sarah, you relate and kind of grow more of an attachment so that it does hurt when Joel has to experience that. But I don't think that that's necessary as a POV change for a television series. It doesn't serve the same function that it once served.
Yeah, because when Joel just like the apocalypse has kind of started and Joel just like pulls up with Tommy and their guns a-blazing, I'm like, I really want to know what Joel was going through downtown, and like I wanted to see his desperation to get back to his daughter. And knowing that Sarah died, I was like, I don't really need to know what she's going through, except for the scenes that she has with Joel, which is when I know their relationship is wonderful, which would be the same if it was Joel's POV. So yeah, that might be a little bit like too close to the game then. Although the scene, obviously, where the old lady like turned behind Sarah while Sarah was looking at the DVDs, can't lose that.
Ooh.
Can't lose that scene. It was so good.
So well filmed, so well
creepy.
shot. The neighbor situation really works, and the whole situation of the initial escape, the drive, that really works. Visually well done too. Like the amount of extras, the CGI plane crash in the background. That is a really well executed sequence.
I mean, everything was well executed. There was no part where I was like, oh, they ran out of money in 9 episodes. But yeah, the entire opening episode was my only question. I'm like, I don't know why the Sarah so much.
And you know what? I'm really glad you brought that up. That is a problem that I hadn't put together until now, getting a perspective of someone who didn't play. But I think very valuable in the game, a very slightly missed in adaptation, perhaps.
Yeah, because later it makes sense that like the show is kind of equally Joel and Ellie.
Yeah,
because they're both the mains, they're both going to live. Their relationship is the whole crux of the show. So yeah, I was just confused about lack of Joel.
Yeah. And now, one thing the first couple episodes had that I did really enjoy, that I do feel like the rest of the series kind of lacked, was these cold open segments.
This is my other possible negative, but I'm just like, where did they go?
Where did they go?
They were so good. It's not a negative to not have them, I guess, but maybe it is because they were so good.
Really, the first one, the talk show from the 70s-ish about the cordyceps, the fungal virus. That was a great segment. Then I think episode 2 was the expert first finding out about it and being like, bombs.
Just
we need bombs.
Immediately.
That was such a powerful sequence. Episode 3 ends up being like all flashback, but then we never really get back to that cold open. Maybe a bit with the birth of Ellie later in the season is a flashback. But
the first 2 were like entire world cold opens. Like these are about the world and how the apocalypse happened. Like the other flashbacks are very much like individual people that were affected. So really, to me, the cold opens were about the world, and then the rest of the show was about Joel and Ellie. So I was like, I really am curious about like how we got this point. Like a 20-year time jump is very much like, what were the steps? So it was weird to introduce those awesome cold opens and then pull them away.
Yeah, I agree with that.
If they hadn't been there, I wouldn't have missed them. But they were there.
And I think they added a lot to it as a show. It's something you didn't get in the games. It's a new perspective. It's a little bit of color for the world. And it also allows for these great little micro performances, again, which this show kind of does in spades throughout. But it allows you to have something fresh and new and have a guest performer who really gets to shine. Like that fungal expert who says bombs, like popped off online. Everyone was like, I love this woman who is like this is an incredible performance. And even just like the talk show, the moment of like, well, where do you get your drugs? Like charming and fun, and all of it worked. And yeah, it really allowed these little new performers to pop in and shine. I would have liked more of it.
And also episode 2 really gave it a global aspect as well.
Yes.
It wasn't just stuck in America, which like all of these apocalypses always are. Like we're in Atlanta, the whole Walking Dead, except for when we're going to France this year, guys. Wait for that in the Daryl spinoff.
Boy.
But yeah, there's a global aspect. So you're like, oh, okay, the whole world is affected. So it's not like you're thinking, oh, maybe we can cross the ocean and go to Europe and we'll be fine. It's like, no, everything's gone. So I also liked the global aspect the cold opens had it. So where are they?
Yeah. Where are they? There should have been more.
You did a thing so good, it's a negative.
Yeah.
Because I wanted more of it.
Yeah. And I think also that was something that added a lot to the show, to have like a little side something, because a friend of mine brought this up with me as one of the problems with basing a show off of a video game, where it's like, you have 2 main characters. Those are the characters from the game, which means that everyone we meet are either going to die or be left behind. We know that because these are the characters we play as, and everyone else is relatively irrelevant. But by having these little asides, it allows someone, like, you don't know where these little stories are going, how they're going to end. It allows something fresh and different.
Yeah. Are we going to tie them in? Are we going to come back to them? Will we meet a character from a cold open maybe someday? Like, yeah, there could have been a lot to play with.
But for performances and side steps to the story, episode 3, Bill and Frank's, obviously a fan favorite, a gut wrencher, one of the best of the season.
Bill and Frank's incredible journey, the sequel to Bill and Ted.
Yeah. Bill, that worked so well.
Oh my God. And it's such a beautiful story in every regard. In any show, in any setting you're putting this story in, just like breaking each other's walls down, like crying over the strawberries, and also just tying it in with like the theme of the entire show is where we end up with. You save someone and you protect them.
Yeah.
So that's what Frank teaches Joel at the end of that episode. That's
Yeah.
literally the spoken lesson, and that's where the season ends.
And also, when you save someone, you save yourself as well.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
of course. Double
Yeah.
themes.
And even like the other parallels between Frank and Joel, like that first or Bill and Joel, that first scene with Bill and Frank when Frank is trying to play the piano, and Bill's like, no, don't do him fighting every moment of connection that they could possibly have to be like, please don't agree with me, please don't know about the wine that I like, please don't play the song that I enjoy on piano, like him fighting compatibility at every inch because like he just is afraid of that connection of getting something that he could lose is such a microcosm of Joel's entire arc of the show, and such brilliant writing.
Such brilliant writing, and it's really nice to have kind of the way that they completed the story, which is like it kind of feels like a tragedy because they die at the end, but they lived their entire lives. Like, it's not a tragedy. It's a victory.
Oh, it's a beautiful, I think it's a beautiful, successful story about these two. Yeah.
They found a life in the apocalypse together. And it's kind of is like, we don't know where Joel and Ellie are going for sure. I mean, like if they do season 2, like the game, obviously we do. But it is kind of this just like beacon of hope in the middle of the apocalypse. There is a life that you can have, and there's love, and there's reasons to keep going.
Yeah.
And there's still beauty.
Yeah.
You can grow strawberries with the love of your life, and you can be happy for 30 or 40 years together.
Yeah.
I think it was only 20 because that's how long the apocalypse was. But 20 years is still
20
pretty good.
plus, yeah.
20 plus, pretty good.
I mean, that's old age as far as living in an apocalypse
Oh,
goes.
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah,
Because we're going back to medieval times
that's
once
living-
you're in an apocalypse.
Exactly.
40 is dead.
Yeah, so that's basically an equivalent of like living over 100 now. So that is quite a long and rich life that the two of them have led. Yeah, they redeveloped a neighborhood. They had guests. They did so much.
They had guests.
A beautiful story.
He wanted to redo the furniture store, and he wanted to paint. It was, they wanted to build a full life. It was, the performances were incredible. The writing was incredible. Just the boldness to be like, we're just going to do an entire episode about this story, and it won't really connect to Joel all that much, except that he comes here for supplies. And I know he comes here in the game, but
Sure.
like we didn't need to fill the gaps.
Yeah, we didn't need to fill the gaps. I think that like they connect it thematically, which is the smartest thing to do as a writing standpoint, to be like, you are witnessing a time compressor of what this season is between Joel and Ellie. And obviously, with a familial love versus a romantic love when we're comparing Joel and Ellie to Bill and Frank. But the time compressed microcosm still applies. So I think by that is what makes it bold and assumes a certain media literacy and comfort of the audience as well, to understand that this doesn't need to be we're explaining supplies or a gun or a MacGuffin that Joel got. We are explaining the thematic purposes of this show through a smaller microcosm of this show.
That is such a great point, because most other shows who do kind of a side episode like this is like, this is where this car came from, or this is why this knife has meaning. But really, this side story was, this is where the themes come from.
Yeah.
And this is where the lessons were learned, or initially.
Yeah.
That we're gonna bring back at the end.
Yeah. Because I think that like a lot of pop culture and media now, and a lot of fandom is just about contrivances and objects.
Easter eggs
and
tying
Easter
it
eggs
together.
and be like, where did we get that? How did that go? Where did that come from? Where did this person live? And it's like, who gives a shit? What does it mean? And it's nice to see that kind of back in a major kind of pop culture piece. Yeah.
I will say they did it just a little in the show, but like they did it so little that it like really popped when Ellie's mom leaves her that knife.
The knife does kind of work in that regard.
The knife made it like retroactively so much more important of why Ellie always wants that knife back whenever someone takes it. Of like on a rewatch, I'd be like, oh yeah, it's her mom's knife, give that back.
Yeah.
It pulls at the heartstrings a little bit, but it's not such a big moment that you're like, where's that knife from? Until it's told.
Yeah.
You don't really care.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not Han Solo's dice or whatever the fuck. You know?
That was dice.
Fucking force dice.
What?
What?
Dice?
The fuck are we talking about?
If Ellie's mom just left her a little pair of dice.
Yeah. It's not Black Widow's green vest that looks a little like every green vest. That's her sister's green vest.
Everyone was asking where the vest was from, Andrew. People don't just show up in vests.
Yeah. Just
Which store?
get your Wikipedia entry out of my movie. What is the meaning behind this? So yeah, Bill and Frank is a wonderful story for that.
Absolutely wonderful. I'm going to move on to my biggest positive of the show entirely. And what I love about this is, I think I said in the spoiler-free review, this isn't like, not torture porn, but trauma porn. It's not just like, I feel like Walking Dead was very much just like, people die, they're bad. People die, they're bad. People die, they're bad. And this show very much, I feel like, I absolutely love the way that Ellie is enthralled by the things of the past. Like the things that we don't have anymore, like escalators and airplanes. And she's just like so...
Mortal Kombat
or Street Fighter?
It was Mortal Kombat.
Oh, was it Mortal Kombat? Either one. Yeah, just like the way that she is like, wants to know more and is sad but happy that they exist, but like is sad she missed out on them. And to make us, the viewer, appreciate the world we live in right now. Like when she's like, you flew on a plane? That's so cool. We can't do that anymore. And then me as a viewer watching and being like, oh yeah, I can't just fly on a plane if I feel like it. And it gives you this sense of optimism of the real world, even though it's bad in their world.
Yeah.
And it's really brilliant, and it really just adds this like nice uplifting kind of sentiment to the entire thing. Like the fact that they spend all this time in just a simple mall, and they're like, "This is the greatest day of our lives." And I'm like, I go to the mall whenever I want.
You can go to the mall right now.
I could go to the mall. You know, Andrew, hit pause.
Let's go to the mall.
We're going to the fucking mall.
We'll go to the mall later.
All right.
We'll go to the mall later. It'll still be there.
We'll go to the mall later. But yeah, it really tugged on my heartstrings every time it happened, that I'm like, I love that they wrote this in, because I feel like other movies and properties do this kind of sometimes if it's like a time travel thing. And a time travel character will be like, oh, wow, planes, what are those? But if it's a time travel character, it's like, we haven't gotten that yet. But with Ellie, it's we had it and lost it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's actually like way deeper and like cuts more of like, oh, the future generation's going to lose things.
Yeah.
But we have them.
Yeah.
And we should appreciate them and protect them better.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
And it's my favorite part of the show.
It's optimistic. It's hopeful. It's the more kind of joyous and youthful and optimistic parts of Ellie, which definitely like throughout her journey gets trampled on, unfortunately, due to the circumstances that she deals with. But there was a thing that I read recently, and I wish I could remember who to attribute it to. So this is not my original thought, but it's one that I would like to expand upon. And I'm sorry I can't remember who it is to attribute this to. But it was a description I read online that was, when it comes to post-apocalyptic media, there's two different perspectives. There's post-apocalyptic media that shows us falling down a ladder as a society, and then there's post-apocalyptic media that shows us climbing up a ladder and restarting again. And that is, it's rarer to see us climb up the ladder. And from the game to the TV series, they kind of make a bit of a switch. I think the game is a bit more pessimistic and bleak, and the TV series is a little bit more, we're on the upswing and optimistic. And then when you compare it to things like The Walking Dead, it's like, we've encountered a cannibal. Whereas in The Walking Dead, it's very much a like, this is how far we're falling, and we keep falling down that hole even farther. Whereas in something like The Last of Us, it's like, yeah, things have gotten bleak, but that's still fucked. We're better than that. We are making things better than that all of the time. We do not need to be this. Mm-hmm. So it does feel like it is on the rise. And I feel like The Last of Us show, Station 11 kind of did that as well, of like moments of like, we're going to build back better. We are going to improve. And it's a very optimistic take on what is a very bleak and pessimistic setting.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and I think I get what you're saying, especially because, like, I think the most successful community we meet is Tommy's community, and they're on the upswing, and they are like, it's an actual community. We're communists, and he is mortified to realize that, and it is a wonderfully hilarious scene when he finds out he's a communist.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's this like, this community's thriving because we're lifting each other up. We're not cannibals that are eating each other. Although even the cannibal community was like this, like, we're not like, we love eating people. It was like, we don't want to eat people.
Right.
We haven't even told people they're eating people.
Yeah.
We'd rather not.
Absolutely.
So we're not like when The Walking Dead, when they met the cannibal community, it was like, oh, delicious. We love eating people.
We're a bunch of sickos. It's like, yeah, I get it. You're a bunch of sickos.
Okay, humanity can fall really, really far. But this was like, humanity might if they have to.
Yeah. Walking Dead is very much like, we revel in how far we've fallen. We enjoy being these primal people-eating monsters.
Yeah, like within the first week, they were like, we should eat each other, right, guys? Right? We've all been waiting to eat human flesh.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is a huge optimism as well. Yeah, to the communities that work together, kind of being the only one that really thrives at the end, because like the QZ ones are like doing okay, but like we've come across like 3 QZs that have fallen.
Yeah.
So I think, where do they start? Boston?
Yes.
Boston is kind of the only one they've come across that's still working and functioning throughout this whole timeline. And then they burn down the cannibals. So really, Tommy's community is the only one that's like, we work together and we're still alive at the end of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing I really like about the world that they paint as well, is that these the Fedra QZs, these like the government came in, established these quarantine zones. Now that in a world without infrastructure and communication, they're all disconnected and they're all kind of have been doing their own thing. I enjoy that it's like, and they all have their own different disconnected story. The idea that it's like, well, every QZ is run by Fedra and they're all corrupt. It's like, no, some have been overthrown. Some are now run by the people. Some have some have democracy. Some are dictatorships. To be like, yeah, it's once you cut off each individual city from one another, everyone developed and did their own thing based on their own unique personalities and personalities of people who are in leadership. And I really like that kind of playful coloring of the world to be like, yeah, there's everything played out differently in different places.
Yeah, wherever you go, it's going to be different. Like, this place is run by fireflies. This place is just run by people. This place is run by Fedra. This place is also run by Fedra, but differently. And there is... Yeah, the people are different. Yeah. It's not just like everything in this world is the same no matter where you show up.
Yeah, this chaos theory of cities. Yeah, I really like it. It adds a lot of nice color to the world for me. I think it adds a bunch.
I think my other favorite thing was, I think Ashley Johnson maybe got the best cameo in this show as Ellie's mom.
Really? Okay.
I think it was because it was smart. I think just the moment that really got me is when Ellie's born. Ellie's born and she's screaming, and like her mom is just like, yeah, you tell him, Ellie. And you get a full sense of who this mom is and that Ellie will be her.
Yeah.
Like, fuck the world. Just start screaming. And you're like, wow, Ellie somehow, I don't think you can be born with your parents' traits in that way, but somehow she was.
Yeah. It really did kind of like color the character to be like, this is who she comes from. Mm-hmm. You were born in a fight with a knife. Like, you've never
known peace.
Yeah. From the moment of your birth, you've been kind of on edge and distrusting and knife in your hands and just nothing but fighting. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that moment really, really got to me.
Excellent.
I think it was a great little flashback.
Yeah. And it was a nice cameo for Ashley Johnson as
well.
She
got a way better one, I think, than Troy Parker did. Or Troy Baker. Sorry.
Yeah. I Baker got more of the episode. Like, Baker got a little bit more activity and involvement, but Ashley Johnson, I think, got like a bigger nugget of a scene.
Yeah, she got to interact with her character as well.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, that's true.
This is Ellie. And she is Ellie's mom in a lot of ways because she is the original Ellie.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Like, that's...
So there's meta.
Yeah, there's a meta generational handoff there.
This is like when all the CW shows have the original actors play the parents of, like, Supergirl's mom is the original Supergirl from 1980. Dean Cain is Supergirl's dad. It's real dad energy, but done better.
And now, how did you feel about the Sam and Henry storyline?
I really liked that storyline. I thought it was a beautiful episode. I think it absolutely... And I think at the end of the day, they're so consistent on this show about what the theme is, because is Sam the older brother or is Henry the older brother?
I can't quite recall, but the
Sam
older brother
is the younger.
Sure.
I can say the older brother is like ostracized by the community because he kind of ratted them out to Fedra, but he did it to protect his little brother, and it is exactly what everyone says in the show, which is protect the person, save someone, and protect them. Mm-hmm. And so it's like he wasn't bad. but he was. Like,
Yeah.
many people died so he could save his brother. There's such a moral quandary going on with everyone in this show who does this. Of,
Yeah.
like, kill multiple people to save one person is... I don't even know what the right answer is, but I get it. And I don't hate anyone who protects the people they love.
Yeah. And I think it's another version of Bill and Frank.
Yeah, it is another version. We have romantic love, we have brotherly love, and then we have familial love with Joel and Ellie. Like, they found like every level of love that you can get going of like save someone, make them your life, protect them.
But I think it also is a bleaker version of Joel's possibility as well, where it's like the lesson of Bill and Frank, the lesson of like find someone you love and protect them, and if you save them, you can save yourself, and you can actually have a life worth living. And then Sam and Henry kind of ending tragically, with the younger brother being infected and then the older brother taking his own life. It goes to kind of show Joel to be like, yes, save someone else and make your life about them, and it means that your life collapses when you lose them. Which later in the series we find out is exactly the story Joel had previously gone through.
He learned this lesson already.
Yeah. And he's seen it, he's lived it, and he can't go through it again. So just showing to be like, well, if you're not as lucky as Bill and Frank, and to be fair, like obviously like, Bill was a prepper and like took a lot of precautions and worked hard at the safe life that they have, but still a considerable amount of luck involved. If you're not lucky, this relationship can also be what destroys you. And I think that Sam and Henry are a really good kind of opposite side to bookend what we learned from Bill and Frank.
Well, I don't know. In a weird way, even though they were lucky, the relationship still did destroy him because he killed himself to die with the love of his life. He had several more years left in him. Bill?
Yeah.
Frank Offerman?
Yeah. Nick Offerman.
Nick Offerman. Who's Frank?
No, you fell apart there.
I did.
Yeah.
Too many names.
No, you fell
Nick
apart
Offerman, like, didn't have to die.
Yes, that is true. That is
so,
true.
like,
But
love kind of kills you no matter what in this show.
Ooh, that's an interesting perspective that I hadn't really considered there.
Death around here.
Huh. That you die together.
Yeah, you go together. Once you're all in on one person in the show,
right.
You
Peacefully
go
or
together.
tragically, you go together. Interesting. I hadn't really thought about it that way.
It's a beautiful story, but he was healthy and fine and
Yeah.
could have kept going.
No, you're absolutely right. I think it was a peaceful choice, and it was a more beautiful ending, but it was unending. I agree with you there, and I hadn't really considered that. Huh. Wow.
Yeah. Now let me throw this at you because I think this was a new thing they added. How do you feel about Ellie basically being Blade?
Oh.
That's her new backstory.
Yeah, I don't recall Blade being her video game backstory, but they did make her Blade.
She wasn't a daywalker in the game?
Yeah, I don't recall them making her the daywalker. I'm fine with it, I guess.
I'm also fine with it, but I also knew very little but didn't think her immunity had ever been explained. So being like, the Blade backstory?
You did the Blade? It feels unnecessary. I like Ashley Johnson's scene, and I enjoy the meta conversation of a handoff to someone else, and being the parent of the character that it is that you've created. But there's a lot that I like about it, but trying to like come up with a reason, I never needed a reason. This actually feels like the show is better than this. Like what I mentioned before, to be like
all the Wikipedias.
Yeah.
Explain it to us.
Yeah, and it's like you're better than this show. You don't need to explain this to us. It's never something that I've needed. It doesn't add anything emotionally. It is just a fact, and facts don't make better stories. They're nothing.
And it is weird to have information the characters don't have, because the characters don't know why Ellie's immune.
Sure.
So it's kind of weird, I think, for me to be like, no, I know why Ellie's immune, and you can't recreate it unless you want to get bit right before you give birth.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's just it is a fact, which by definition is just it's neutral. It doesn't care about you or your themes. And it's not good or bad. It is just a thing that exists here. So I kind of nothing it.
Okay. In case, I assume everyone listening maybe knows, but Blade is Blade because his mom was pregnant and got bit by a vampire. And it made him a half vampire.
Yeah.
So I guess she's half fungus?
She's half fungus. Oh, she's half fungus.
She's half fungus. fungus. She can walk
Interesting.
amongst the fungus.
She can, except she can't. The
No,
fungus
they
do seem
attack
to
her.
hate her. But also, vampires hate Blade.
They hate Blade.
They fucking hate
Those
Blade.
motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
Every time.
And so's the fungus.
So's the fungus. Fungus is always trying to ice skate uphill. So yeah, it's funny though that it is the Blade thing.
It is
Yeah.
the Blade thing. I am a little curious about, is there more zombies in the game? It feels like only like every like third episode actually, like, it's an apocalypse obviously, but we don't actually see that many zombies. Like, we only have to kind of avoid them to get out of Boston, and then Melanie Linsky's like whole place is overrun with them.
Yeah.
And then do we really like run into any more zombies that much? Like,
I think I think it might just be kind of the two instances. It is the the Civil
initial-
War Museum, I think, is where
yeah, that's
is where
a huge
they
one
are.
where Tess gets bit.
Or no, not the Civil War Museum, but the Founding Fathers Museum or whatever it was. Yeah, the museum, and then the Melanie Linsky's
Huge overrun.
group overrun, and then I think that's it.
I guess when Ellie got bit in the flashback, there's literally one.
Oh, flashback, maybe. Yeah. I think it's just that. I mean, in the game, they kind of alternate acts where it's like versus
Humans
people
versus
versus the creatures versus people versus creatures. So they kind of alternate back and forth. And it seems like maybe it's a similar pacing in the show where it is creatures, people, creatures, people. But I agree that there's not many in there. But I don't feel like it's lacking, though, at the same time.
I'm not feeling that it's lacking. I actually don't like want more zombies, I guess. I guess I just like there would be like 2 or 3 episodes with no zombies, and I actually would kind of forget it was a zombie apocalypse and not just an apocalypse.
Ah, okay.
It would kind of leave my mind for a while. We would like just run into the cannibals, and Joel would get stabbed at the hospital, and that's 2 episodes in a row with no zombies. And I'm like, yeah, we're just like surviving in like the cold. Oh no, wait, there's zombies. Fuck, I forgot there were zombies. This is a
Right.
whole different kind of apocalypse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just I think I maybe needed like a reminder every like 30 minutes that there's zombies.
Yeah, because it does seem like it's a concern, but not a huge concern.
Yeah, it seems like if you're in the woods, you'll never run into a zombie, even though that's where fungus is.
Yeah, that's where
I've run into a lot of mushrooms in the woods.
that fungus does like the woods. Yeah, you make a really good point that they kind of mention it. There is a tension there, but it doesn't come up a lot. I think that visually it kind of works that like
They
you only
looked
get
great.
they look great.
They looked great.
And they obviously the less that they have to show them, the more attention that the makeup and visual effects department can provide these. So the less you see it, the better they will look when you see it. And also then you don't become desensitized to seeing it, and it remains remarkable and scary when it does show up. But other than that, it does end up being just kind of a quiet background. Like we mentioned that it's a concern, but it doesn't come up too often.
Yeah, and I think the fact that they're not in the finale is also like, it doesn't feel like a zombie show.
Right.
Not that they should have been, because obviously the finale is its own.
It's dealing with its own shit.
It's dealing with its finale shit, with Joel's
Yeah.
shit. But yeah, the fact that the zombies don't come into play, even though they do, because we're trying to kill Ellie so we can cure zombieism.
Sure.
But,
Yeah.
it's just it's a weird amount of zombie.
No, I think that's a great point. That's a great point. You do remind me, kind of like bringing up going through the woods. Just so many great little.
The couple in the woods.
The couple in the woods.
The couple in the woods.
Amazing.
Oh my god.
Did you tell
what?
them the truth? Yes. Are you telling me the truth? Yes.
Did you make them soup?
Yes.
I didn't want to live out here. Like every single line.
Oh my God, they killed it in that scene. So good.
It's so great that these are the only 2 people who got to live in this whole show. They're still alive when Joel and Ellie leave, and I hope they're thriving, but also still bickering away. I loved them.
The fact that they survived because of where they live and the wife still has a bit of resentment over moving is the funniest, realest shit. I adored these 2.
I want their flashback episode. I
Yeah.
want to see the episode where they moved to the woods before the zombie apocalypse. I want to see how they found out there were zombies. I want their spin-off show. They were so good.
My God, I want them living at Tommy's commune. Like, we need to bring them into the fold.
Yeah, Joel and Ellie need to go find them
Yeah.
and be like, "Do you want to live?" Because
Hey,
the
we got a
wife would
thing
want
going
to.
on.
The wife would want to.
She
I don't
might
know
want
if,
to.
I don't know if the husband would.
Yeah.
But the wife would be all in.
I don't know. She hates moving though, so I don't know. A delightful little side story there.
Absolutely. Yeah, they were for like 5 minutes and not even really plot relevant. Wow, what scene stealers.
Yeah, absolute scene stealers. Yeah, the smallest of the duo cameos throughout this series, and just complete scene stealers. And we've talked about all of the scene stealers, all of these micro stories that have come up as well. But I don't think we've really kind of like chewed into how good Bella and Pedro are doing as Joel and Ellie. And I think that they are doing a phenomenal job. They have such sincere bickering chemistry, and like these moments of just kind of fighting their relationship and like releasing the tension of allowing the relationship to come into their lives. They sell the shit out of every look, every glance, every pun. When Bella just telling puns when they're lying down to go to sleep, and she does like the diarrhea runs in your jeans. And Joel's like, that's stupid. And him rolling away from her, fighting laughter. Just every look and glance between these two sells so much about everything.
They're so good. And I think it's really hard to laugh at things in character. I actually think this is an incredibly difficult thing to do as an actor. To think a joke is funny that you've done 18 times in rehearsal.
Sure.
To be like, we're going to tell you a pun and you have to act like you just heard it for the first time, and we need your laughter to be genuine and it has to like surprise you. These are really hard things to do. So to see Joel breaking during these puns and like Ellie just having to have this joy about reading them all the time, like these are really hard things to dig into that seem really easy because they make it seem effortless. Mm-hmm. But like it is hard to sell a scene of people giggling.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to reach that in real life and to find it in an acting scene of like, I have to get giggly. I gotta get giggly right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've seen some interviews with Bella and Pedro where they talk about that, where like it was one take of reading the pun and then several takes of Bella fucking with Pedro to get the reaction they needed.
You got extra puns in the back burner?
Yes, yeah, extra puns in the back burner, or just like telling inside jokes between the two of them, but obviously they don't use that audio, but using the reaction that Pedro gives. I love seeing interviews with these two. They are so sincerely loving and supportive of one another.
They love each other. It's so great.
And normally actors who talk about their process are exhausting. But these two talking about their process to one another of being like, yeah, we found how to get the best out of one another, and boy, that's joyous. I'm like, I love you two working together. I truly love it.
That's a great point, because I think most actors who are like, my process, are actors going through like a singular method acting, like playing the Joker or something, like I'm alone. But these two have to be a duo for 9 episodes.
Yeah.
So their process is so symbiotic. We are a team and we had to come up with our process together is actually interesting and isn't just like a pretentious acting thing that you have to do.
Right.
Where you're like, I went to the gun range for 18 days and I learned how to become a real sniper like Joel. It is like, no, I made a couple inside jokes with Bella because that helped our relationship on screen.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, there was one interview I saw with Bella, who I forget is British as well.
Oh, yes. Her accent. Oh, my God. How are you a better accenter than every other grown-up?
So good. So good. And clearly as well, she has done a somewhat voice match to Ashley Johnson's video game performance.
Yeah, it's cool. It's not cool. It's not like a complete like.
It's not
imitation?
identical, and I think like physically and in the embodiment of this character has made this character her own, but I think in not doing her natural voice has chosen to do something a little bit closer to the video game than what Pedro was doing. So it's a little bit shocking sometimes to see her like do her British accent. But there was this great interview. It's her and Pedro, and she's talking about like a scene where she's crying, and she's like, while crying, I use one of the tear sticks. Which, for those of you who don't know, is like a menthol smell that will make you cry up for a scene. She was like, I thought it was so I avoided it for so long because I think it's cheating as an actor if I use a thing to make me cry when I should be able to cry if I'm an actor. And Pedro's like, nah, fuck that. And like just them sincerely supporting one another. But then she goes on where she's like, well, yeah, I thought that like if I feel the emotion good enough, then I should cry. But she's like, the opposite is true. When you cry, you force yourself to cry. But now that you're crying, you sincerely feel the emotion. So she was like, it's not about emotion affecting the body. It's about body affecting the emotion. And Paige was like, of course it is. You've nailed it. And like, they just love and support one another getting the best performance out of one another in whatever way that looks like. And I'm like, this is what filmmaking. I'm so overjoyed.
It's a
collaborative
process.
process. No one needs to be method and shitty to one another on set. Just support one another.
Look what we get when you're nice.
Everything's so fucking good.
Look what a good show you make when everyone's nice and they support each other and they just listen.
Yeah. When they just listen. I think the last thing that we need to discuss is the final episode.
The final episode. I mean, we've kind of already covered all the themes about like protecting the person you save and everything. It's a wild choice Joel makes. It is a John Wick style rampage. I mean, it's for a little girl and not for a dog, so it's a little bit more understandable. But yeah, I don't know, it's morally tough.
Yeah, it is a tough one. I think
it becomes more morally tough knowing like in the second one that like that is like I don't know. Actually, do I want to give spoilers?
No spoilers for the second one because I do know some people who I've talked to who like haven't played the game, so like I have no idea where it's going. I don't know what you mean by the second one.
Oops.
Yeah, so there's a lot of places that it can go that I think some people don't know about. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you feel about this when you played it and watched it?
I think
when you killed the doctor. I think that's the big moment is killing the doctor.
I think it's such a different experience watching versus playing. And I think one thing that I want to talk about is just like my last kind of point. And I know that during this episode, I hope I wasn't insufferable by bringing up too much video game stuff. Because I know that on this show, we don't typically bring up or don't too much bring up the source material, the comic books or whatever it might be based on. But there is an inherent difference. And I think it's going to be interesting to see the reaction, because we only just watched this, but to see the reaction to this season finale and to where they'll go with season 2 versus what the reaction to the video game is. Because there is this inherent defensive difference between a video game and a movie or a TV show. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with some of the Sarah stuff, where it's when you play a video game, it's I am Joel. I am Joel. No one says that if you didn't play the game. No one says that watching the TV show. You watch the TV show and you're like, Joel is going around this corner. Joel is fighting a clicker. When you play the game, you're like, I am going around this corner. I am fighting a clicker. I am protecting Ellie. So when they have this conversation around, this narrative conversation around Joel has made a mistake. In a video game, it becomes you have made a mistake. You have done a horror. You have done an atrocity. You have done a bad thing. And that is something that makes video game fans so inherently uncomfortable and defensive to be like, no, I didn't. I had to protect Ellie. What do you... No, this isn't an ending about a guy who did a morally great thing. I did the morally right thing, and I was right the whole time. I did it. Don't tell me I did the bad thing. I'm right. Whereas in a show, I think there can be a much more nuanced conversation with viewership being like, Joel sure did a questionable thing without being personally defensive around it. So I think it's going to be so interesting to see what the discourse around this show is and comparing it to the discourse around the video game and the inherent defensiveness people have around a video game character. To be like, that's me, though. Don't tell me I was wrong. Whereas like a show can be like, Joel might have been wrong. And I think that there's a much more nuanced conversation that can be had there.
That is so interesting. And I get what you're saying, even as a non-video game player, that like, yeah, people would definitely be like, Joel did the right thing as a player. But like viewers of the show are just so much more distant of Joel's actions and can analyze them more and be like, is that the right thing? Like, maybe I'm a Marlene and I'm like, the world is more important, Joel.
Right. Yeah. So I think it's a very interesting thing. I don't know. I don't know. There's definitely moral gray around it, and there's definitely some huge complications around it. But I'm more interested around the conversation about it.
Oh, that'll be interesting to find out. Yeah, I will say I think the show. I guess this happened in the game. You've told me, but I think the show gave them a pretty easy out with the doctor just immediately picking up a scalpel and coming at him. Not that Joel couldn't just easily take him out with like a kneecap bullet or something. He didn't have to shoot the guy in the head.
Sure.
But he lets the nurses live and they don't do anything.
Sure.
So it isn't just a matter of like wiping out everyone who knows Ellie's immune, even though that kind of seems like why he kills Marlene.
And I think too that they go pretty violent with it, of him even like shooting the people who put down their arms. Like there is no
Yeah.
surrender. It is a moment where a psychopath has truly made a decision, made a hard turn decision.
He literally chose violence.
Yes, he certainly did.
He made a hard turn. But yeah, it is to that point. I actually think it's more weird that he let the nurses live. To be honest,
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
if he
there.
is willing to shoot guys who put their guns down,
Yeah.
but these women were going to take out Ellie's brain.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's hard.
Hard one.
It's an interesting topic.
Well, let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? So now that we've discussed everything we've discussed, what would you change about this if you could change anything? Before we do ask the final question, we want to remind our listeners, as we do every week, please take a moment to rate and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, or wherever you might get this podcast. It helps us move up the charts. It helps us find new listeners. It helps us grow and expand as a podcast.
We want to be bigger and better and stronger. And we need your reviews. Wherever you want to leave them 5 stars, tell us we're great. And it really helps us move the charts. It makes people read them and be like, oh, there's new current listeners. Everyone thinks they're really good. I'm going to listen. And you make that happen.
Absolutely. So leave a little review. Free way to tiny, this big, say endure and survive, whatever you want to put in there. And that's a free way to support this podcast. If you do want to support this podcast monetarily, you can do so over on Patreon, which is a monthly subscription service. You subscribe at whatever level is in your budget, and you get cool exclusive bonuses for doing it. The $1 level, even $1 a month, allows you to get our webcomic early. You get early releases of our webcomic. At the $10 hero level, you get a bonus episode of this podcast every single month. This month we did Plane.
Oh, guys, did we do the hell out of Plane?
We did the hell out of Plane.
We planed so hard.
Yeah.
Plane is a Mike Coulter and Gerard Butler movie, if you don't know.
About a plane.
And it's fun.
It's interesting. Check out our episode on Plane, which is available right now over on our Patreon page. You can find multiple donation levels. You can cancel or change on any given month. You can do a month. You can do a year, whatever is in your budget or more comfortable for you. But have a look at the page. See the options. Hopefully there is something there that makes you feel good about supporting us and gets you a cool bonus as well. So head on over to patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. That is patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. And thank you to all of our current and future patrons.
Thank you, our wonderful patrons.
And now let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? Diana, what would you change?
There's not much to change here. I think we're both maybe going to agree about that. I think my biggest changes would be I would have kept the cold opens. I know some of these episodes are kind of long, but like whatever. They'll just be even longer. We'll have some cold opens. Because yeah, it was weird to set up to establish a pattern of these and then completely stop them. And I really liked them, and I liked the world building that they do outside of Joel and Ellie's story. So I would have kept the cold opens going for much longer, if not till the very end. And then I think my only other change would. This doesn't even count as a change. I wouldn't have gotten to the hospital so soon. I'm like, why is this 9 episodes? 9's such a weird number. Let's go to like 12. Let's take longer to get to the hospital. Let's not get to the hospital this season. I just want more Last of Us. And I'm like, I know we're almost out of story now. I know there's only 2 seasons of story as of right now. So I guess my biggest change would be like, slow it down, guys. We didn't need to get here this year. We could have stopped somewhere else. I don't know. Add some more fill-in stories like Bill and Frank. More Last of Us is my change, which shouldn't count as a change, but I get to do whatever I want. It's my podcast.
I can agree with that a little bit. I don't know if I want that much more, but I at least think it should have been 10 episodes.
9's such a weird number.
9's also 9. Not only is 9 a weird number, as we were going into 9, I was like, so is he just going to arrive at the hospital and then the hospital happens? And that was 9.
That is exactly what happened.
It felt like there was 2 episodes of story left when we were going into the final episode.
Yeah, the finale did feel quite rushed, I will say. Like very little with Joel and Ellie, especially once they get to the hospital. They just get separated. He never sees her again. It's like
a nice, beautiful scene as they as they head into the hospital. But I almost feel like we needed a full episode of this. I'm now the talkative one trying to deal with Ellie's trauma.
Yeah, it cut off pretty soon.
Yeah.
And also, we never get Ellie's point of view once we get to the hospital. She's just unconscious. I
think that's purposeful, though. I actually I agree with that. So I agree with. I agree with what is wrong about that, but also how they tell it, where it's like one of Joel's problem is that he steals her agency and lies to her. And so I think we need to not have her perspective.
Oh, see, my problem is that the Fireflies lied to her. She didn't know she was going in there to be
I mean,
killed.
everyone lies to her.
Everyone lies
It
to
is
her.
it is someone who's removed of their agency. So I agree it's a problematic thing, but it is purposeful in how they don't give her any agency in that scenario.
All right, I get what you're saying. But anyway, more is
More.
my change. Andrew, what would you change?
I mean, I'm gonna keep it pretty simple and just agree with you and say one episode more and keep the cold opens. Such a strong episode 1 and 2 cold open. Episode 3 was all cold open. I actually would have liked it if episode 3 was Frank and Bill and then just ended with the credits. But then we kept the cold open throughout. And the birth of Ellie was a nice cold open. But I think that, each episode should have had something maybe even like pre-fall or the 20 years in between with Joel or whatever it might be. But a little mini movie, a little side event, something to kind of showcase the wonderful casting top to bottom that this show has done. Just cold open. That's my only change. It's so simple. They really rock the shit out of this show top to bottom.
An incredible show.
Truly incredible. Yep.
Well done, HBO and everyone involved.
Bravo. I cannot wait to see what you do with season 2. And I really just have no doubts that season 2 is going to be phenomenal because everything about this was so well done. I can't see where they would fall now, where they would stumble after getting everything right.
We'll see if we eat those words.
We'll see if we eat those words
in probably
later.
2 to 3 years.
Yes,
Takes a minute.
It'll take a little bit. I'm sure HBO is already starting production and figuring it out, though. But that is going to be it for this week for our conversation about the wonderful Last of Us. Next week, we are going to be back on the podcast. We are going to be talking about Shazam 2.
It's the second one.
Fury of the Gods?
I think that's the title.
I believe that's the title.
He's Shazamming around again.
He's back Shazamming around. We'll be talking about that next week. In the meantime, one thing that I would like all of you to do, please, is I have a new comedy album out. My second comedy album, my sophomore stand-up comedy album, is available right now. It is called Murder Bird. If you search my name or Murder Bird wherever you get your music or albums, you will find it.
He's the only murder bird out there.
I'm the only murder bird out there. So search Murder Bird wherever you get your music, and please have a listen and have a laugh at my stand-up comedy album. I'm incredibly proud of it. The reviews have been fantastic. The response has been phenomenal. Thank you to everyone who's already listened. And if you haven't, get on it. Give it a listen.
If you like Andrew here, you'll love Andrew's prepared materials, guys. I'm just going to throw that logic bomb at you.
This is me winging it.
This is unprepared jokes. He's just going off. You should see him. You should hear him when he's like, I worked on this one. It's such a funny album. It is so good. You should check it out. You won't regret it. There's no way.
You won't regret it. So you can search for Murder Bird wherever you get your music, or if you go to murderbird.andrewivimey.com. That is murderbird.andrewivimey.com. That is a link that will have all of many of the other links to different audio sources and where you can find it. Or, like I said, you can just search Murder Bird on probably wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. I appreciate all of you who've already listened, and please give it a listen. It means the world to me, and it's very funny.
It's very funny.
It's very funny. And if you want to find us on social media, you can find me on Instagram at Ivimey, Ivimey.
You can find me on Twitter at Words of Diana.
And you can find us pretty much anywhere at From Superheroes. And we'll see y'all next week.
Bye.